Okay, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Perceptive Podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. I am Josh Beiser, and we have another developer interview lined up for today's episode. My guest is the designer on the game Grid Force Mask of the Goddess that was released just in September at the time for those of you watching this recorded or live. And he is on to talk about the game, and I'm sure all variety of topics as well. So please welcome from Dreamnaut Studios, Dan Bernardo. How are you doing?
I'm pretty well. Thank you very much for having me, Josh.
Yep, it is a pleasure to have you on. And first of all, definitely congratulations on the release of the game. I remember checking out, I think this demo like at least a year or two ago. So it's great to see that the game is finally out.
Yeah, it's been 3 years of grinding and lots of work, but it all pays off when you finally release it. So we are super happy about it.
hmm So, we certainly have a lot that we're going to be discussing here tonight. And for people tuning in live or record, if you do have any questions for Dan, feel free to either leave them in the comments or put them in the chat and we will get to them as they come in. So, to start things off, since this is your first time on, could you talk a little bit about who you are and what is your general background when it comes to game dev?
Yeah, as you can notice, I have a quite thick accent. I'm from Brazil. I'm half Dutch though, so it's a mixed background, and I actually am a kind of newcomer in gaming development. I spent most of my career doing technology and big servers and big pieces of software, and but always in the back of my mind, I wanted to create games. It's something that I think this is the kind of story that you hear a lot. Like since I was a kid, I wanted to create games. But for me, it was back then quite impossible. Brazil of the 80s was not very easy to start creating games, especially somebody who came from my background is quite very poor. So I feel like my whole life was this very tortuous trip to finally land into game development. So before that, I was doing, I studied anthropology and I started doing technology that's nothing to do with it, and design, and then finally came to gaming.
hmm And when did you start the studio? Or when did you join the studio? Like, however it worked.
So Dreamnaut is my creation together with my co-founder. We started the company 2019 at very beginning, so it's like almost 4 years now. And the idea was that was start a company with a vision of what we want to do and just hit the ground running. So now we are nine of us, but we've been like gradually building up the team. Just make sure that we have the right people to create the game we want to create.
hmm And as you said a few minutes ago, you've been working on the Grid Force for the last 3 years. Is for people watching, is Grid Force like your first like commercial product, or have you worked on previous games prior?
So there's a funny story because when we started, I my co-founder said let's start creating our game. We have lots of ideas and we just want to create everything as soon as possible. But I knew that I need to kind of stress test everybody. So we spent the first year just creating little games, small games for free, and then putting them on mobile and showing to family and friends, just to see if we could actually stand the sight of each other for so long and with so much pressure. And then after like 8 months of developing small games, um, and we did this very quick, which is like 2 months and we have a new game out. We know that we have the right people, but also have the right processes, and that we each really like each other. So it was a time. I was okay. What's the big thing that you want to do? And it was Grid Force. So first year was just like testing and tuning in, and then make sure that we are ready.
hmm So, what kind of, I guess to start all for people watching us, what's kind of the elevator pitch, or what is a Grid Force?
The elevator pitch is Grid Force is a tactical bullet hell RPG. Um, but if I can put just one genre, I would say it is a RPG first and foremost, because the most important part of the game is the story. It's a sprawling, huge story with more than 30 characters. They're all playable, and but we wanted to create a combat system that was very fast and full of action, but also it was very instinctive,
Mhm.
intuitive. The team was very into Mega Man Battle Network games, the idea of like two sides of a grid, and then you have to control your side, and almost like volleyball style. And the more we start creating the game, the more the game start getting faster and faster and faster. And until one day somebody says it looks like a bullet hell. There's so much going on, and we love that. So there's a lot of tactics, but because it's so fast and so full of action happening everywhere, we feel like tactical bullet hell is what the combat is, but in heart is a RPG.
Mhm. What I find very interesting is that I've heard from a lot of developers, especially from the indie space, for like the last like 5 to 7 years, a lot of people have been inspired by like the Mega Man Battle Network, that kind of, grid on the left, grid on the right kind of combat system. I'm just curious, like, what attracted like you and the team to be like what inspired you from that to make that as kind of the basis for Grid Force?
Funny enough, the Grid Force mechanic was supposed to be a small mechanic inside another game that we are going to create, which actually happens to be probably the next game we're going to create. But we had so much fun with that, and um, it's funny when you start creating mechanics is that um, there is this sweet spot between simplicity, boring, and simplicity that actually push the boundary of your imagination and your creativity. And we just kept finding new and interesting ways of using that very simple setup of left, right. And the teams are creating characters and creating situations, and it was like this is enough to create a game that's going to be satisfying. So it kind of is a homage to Mega Man Battle Network for sure, but it at the same time is just we got the spirit of what we feel that is very simple, very elegant, and actually very fun. And we try to like push the boundaries of this. Like in this box, how far can we go in terms of mechanics, in terms of different situations and level design? So yeah, we saw this coming because some other friends were actually working in games with the grid. But we thought what we're going to create is very different. So we decide, let's do what we want to do instead of like, oh, there's already somebody working on that.
So with Grid Force, I think another thing that stood out from the game, of course, is the aesthetics and the character designs. And I was hoping that for people watching, could talk a little bit more about like inspiration for the story and how you want the aesthetics of the game to be.
So my background, one of my backgrounds is as a graphic designer. So I'm a nerd for, classifying all styles for each decade. And I love the 70s poster aesthetic where everything is very simple and very bright. Um, and I wanted the game to be like that. I want the game to be colorful, simple, with the characters as almost like icons that you can very easily identify by
Mhm.
just the shapes. Um, but we want to create a mashup. So the main angular characters with they have very few details, but they have lots of personality. At least what we feel comes from these posters of the 70s. The soundtrack is a mismatch. It is very important for us because we love the soundtrack of the game. We really want people to listen to it because it really slaps. Um, is a mix of the 90s with some very very modern pop music. Um, and we want this to be something that people will play and feel like there are lots of different styles in it, but they still work together. So most of the storytelling, the cutscenes, if you will, are all shown in manga style comic book. And we're very nervous about it, about this mix. We're very nervous, like people gonna feel like we have no taste. It's like, but this works, so let's just embrace it. But yeah, those are the main inspirations.
Hmm. And did you do like all the like manga style cutscenes yourself, or did like anyone else in the studio do that with you?
Oh, I wish. No, I'm not. No, I'm not that good. The Noe is one of the artists. The idea of Grid Force, and is something that we don't talk much about, is that all characters are female in the game, because we didn't want to like, make a statement. But because it's a female story, I really want to bring female um professionals to our team, and one of these female professionals, sorry, the writer who wrote with me is a female writer, and also one of the artists is Noe Pesqueda, and she is absolutely amazing. And you probably know how it is for indies, right? You have a lot to do in very little money, very little resources, so you have to decide, you have to be very wise about it. And how can we make the story not boring that people have to be like reading, reading, reading? I want cutscenes, I want action. And we thought about the drawings and thought about CG and all other things, and all comes back to us like we cannot do this. We don't have time and money. And Noya was the one who said, I actually draw comic books in my spare time, and was just absolutely amazing. It's like, yeah, that's it. This is a kind of happy accident that necessity and opportunity come together, and then you create something that it would be better. At that moment I feel like, thanks God we didn't have more money because we probably could have get something subpar. But then we just found out this style and we love it.
So with the general flow of Grid Force, is this more on the like roguelike side, or is it more like a story driven kind of gameplay?
This that is the problem with when we try to create something like this, is
Hmm.
that how do you define it? I would say that depends on how you see it. And I know it's a very evasive answer, but the way the game structure is, you have six of these lands. There's actually seven lands. Um, and the first time you go through these lands is very story driven. You make decisions and you get different paths, and you find new characters and you lose some characters. Some people are gonna agree with what you do, some and join you. Some people are gonna disagree. It's gonna go away. But once you do that, you can always return to the exact same place, and then it becomes a roguelike, because you're gonna go through these places and you have all the roguelike kind of mechanics. But yeah, it's a bit of a mix. When the first a person who is really into a player who is really into the storytelling part of it can actually play the whole thing as an RPG. But if you want to actually go through all the secrets and all the pieces and best characters and all those things, you have to like play many many times.
Hmm. And the kind of like I guess like trust system how characters may like or dislike what you do. How does that kind of like impact the gameplay?
So the one thing that really bothers me are games that give the illusion of decision making, and it doesn't matter. And I want the decisions for characters to be for players to be as impactful as we possibly can. The problem with that, in technical terms, is every time you make a decision that makes a big difference in the story, you start creating two stories. And you can cheat and try to get the stories back, converge back, but it still feels like cheating. So we try to create a story that actually leads you to different endings, and the game has, I won't say at least four endings, not say more than that. But one of the first decisions of the story is if a character die, you let the character die or not, and that will ramificate through the whole stories. So some people, because of that decision alone, there are many characters that become inaccessible and some characters that become accessible. So we want to create this. We want to create decisions that make a big impact, and also sometimes you make a decision in this game that feels like it doesn't affect anybody else, but the information travels the world, And sometimes we find characters that say, "I know what you did," and I disagree with that. Um, and then you're just like, "Oh, damn! I want to please this character, but my reputation precedes me." And it's the kind of thing that you try to create.
Now, with the kind of like the Mega Man Battle Network gameplay, or like being inspired by that, one of the things I've noticed about some of the games that go this route, there's always that challenge of how fast do you want to make that kind of gameplay. For people watching, I'm sure they're familiar with the game. I think it's One Step from Eden, which is kind of like that's like all roguelike. I found it to be very high speed. It can be a little hard to keep track. With Grid Force, how did you and the team kind of balance, I guess, the general flow of combat, or how fast or slow you wanted to make things?
That was actually the hardest things for us to do. The thing about game development that I learned is that um, you you create a car, right? Say like a car has four wheels and whatever. You know what to do, like make a car. But it's like when you're creating your game, you have to like do the whole thing again. You have to invent the whole thing again. So there was nothing telling us what was good, how was fast or was not. So we have to actually follow our instincts with that. The game was actually much slower in the beginning, um, and then became very fast and very hard to read. So we kept balancing it until we find something that's like, I can manage this. And it also depends because some people who play the game said, "Oh, the game's slow," and some people who play the games like, "I cannot keep up," because players are different, right? So we try to see what is our core audience first and how fast they like it, and we start tuning for that. But I think the basic thing for us to create, and funny you talk about One Step from Eden because we get a lot of comparisons with them, a lot. And for me, it's an honor because I love the game. Um, but I think structurally it's quite different, and we want this to have this own pace. And it's what you said about One Step be fast, and some people say One Step is slower than Grid Force. It's like it actually doesn't matter because the gameplay loop is so different. But for us, was important just to actually feel right, and it is very hard to explain. It's just like, okay, I get this. And especially when you give to somebody else who never played the game, and the person get it, is always a good sign.
Mm-hmm. What has been, I guess, like, are there any like interesting challenges or aspects of Grid Force? I guess another way to rephrase that: were there any parts during development that had to be like change, or has like the original concept of Grid Force like kind of maintained itself from beginning to end of development?
The concept of the story, the way we want the story was always consistent and was always there, but mechanics changed constantly. um, Sometimes especially with feedback, when you do something, the funny thing about doing your game is that the first draft of what you do is awesome. You feel like it's great, and then you put some in somebody's hands. Somebody's like, "Oh, this is trash," and you feel like really bad, and you have to start doing it again. So this crisis of what we exactly we want to be kept following us for the whole development, I guess. At least to the midpoint, and the meeples, we have to get our shit together. We have to get, you have to define what this creature is. So I remember very clearly one meeting where we are like, the game. I feel powerless sometimes because there's so much coming to me from the enemy, and I feel like I have no power. And then somebody's from the team, Vinny, he said, I think we should allow the character to defend attacks. And then else said, "Oh, more than defend, you should reflect the attacks back if they do this properly." And that one, like we all like, the scratching your head moment. It's like, oh, this is gonna be very different. I'm gonna have to go back and rebalance everything. And we like this to sleep. And the next day I came back and our dev had like just put together a very quick test for it, and we play and just like, oh my god, this feels so good and so right. um, so that was one of the moments where a change just actually changed everything about the game. and was very positive. And if we feel like that moment was a moment just I feel like we found our our stride. It's like okay, that is the story is great and the combat has to be great, and this is the thing that was missing. And I think that kind of raised our morale. And we had lots of other problems later, but they're all how to get where we want to be instead of where are we going. You know what I mean?
And especially when you have a very like combat centric kind of gameplay, getting that feel right is very
Hmm.
important. And I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of games struggle with that. That it doesn't matter if the story is amazing, it doesn't matter what the art is. If the person picks up the controllers or the controller and it's just like I don't know what I'm doing, or I hit the button like counter to something completely different. What the heck is going on?
Yeah, it's funny you said that. There's one thing that happened that I like to tell everybody, although I'm slightly embarrassed about it. So we're all working on the game, and um, our developer, who is my co-founder Ricky, he said, "Okay, we are ahead of schedule. I'm gonna clean the code. There's some things that we can optimize a bit. The game's going to switch. You have to make sure it's super optimized." And then he started cleaning stuff that was not working, like was not doing anything for the game. It was just like dormant there, just
Oh no.
adding lines. The next day, I think 3 days later, I get the game and I start playing, and immediately I said like, this doesn't feel right. The movement is not right. The fluid is not it's not flowing the way it's supposed to flow. There's something wrong. It feel like isn't when there's a small rock inside
Hmm.
shoe and
Oh
you don't it's
yes.
like is what is it like? It was just this feeling, and I give the control to somebody else, but like I don't know, there's something wrong, and we just didn't know. It was such a delicate, you know, balance. And our dev was like, I did nothing. I didn't change anything. I just took something that is not using. Like, what did exactly what you took? And it was this. Is we don't know what it was, and we have to actually revert the changes. It's like, okay, now it feels the way it's supposed to. And to this day, we have no idea what it was. It's just like
The
some
magic of
ghost,
programming right there.
yeah, some ghost in the machine. Something happened there.
And I guess like to keep with the conversation about the gameplay, with as you were saying earlier, with like each character being like their own unique personality and how the story will branch depending upon who you take, who joins, who refuses you. How does that apply to, I guess, the different abilities or like what you're doing during combat?
So each character is absolutely unique. And we want when you say absolutely unique, I say unique in many, many different ways. So they have to have, of course, the personality and the function in the story, but the way the gameplay incorporate those things is you have four classes of characters in the game. So the four archetypes is the Valiant, the Champion, the Spellbinder, and the Defender. And they are your damage dealer, um, your kind of jack of all trades, your mage, and your no tank, basically those. But then you also have six different elements. So it's light, dark, water, fire, earth, and wind. And each one of the characters is one of these combinations. So you have a fire valiant, or a water defender, or a dark spellbinder. And this eh, informs how the abilities work and what they get when they upgrade. So you can go very defensive with four defenders because the game works. You create this squad of four characters, and you can just change between them, on the fly. So you have this group of characters, and you're going to be changing them and going to create your squad depending on this combination. So if you get like the squad of four fire characters, and they all have different elements, different classes, it's going to play very differently because they are, attuned to the element. So you want also the attacks to be unique enough that some people find it absolutely useless, and some people can kill everything with them. It's just about how you use it. So there was quite a lot of work to try to make sure that each character is absolutely unique in the gameplay, but also in the personality, and those things are connected.
Mm-hmm. And with the different like elements, is there kind of like a rock paper scissors element at play between like fighting different characters?
Yes, that is, and everybody says Pokemon, and I'm like, okay, it's good. So yeah, we have it's gonna be hard for me to remember, but basically it's Earth is strong against um light, light against dark, dark against water, water against fire, fire against air, air against uh Earth. The way you manifest is the damage that you deal. They are much effective if you're fighting somebody else with the same with the element that is weaker. But also attacks that come to you from your same element that you have, you're probably gonna just heal you or do nothing. So it's also quite see like if you have an enemy that's the same attack than you, sometimes it's good to have a character that's gonna get this. But on top of this, each character has a unique passive ability that they unlock at a level 10. So it's the maximum level of each character. And this ability uh, applies to everybody in your squad. So let's say Donna, who is the main character, she has an attack that is piercing. This goes in, it doesn't stop. It just hits everything on the path. When she gets to level 10, if you use her in your squad, everybody has the ability. Everybody has the piercing um, on part. So it's good to test each one of them and then see what the passive abilities and the normal abilities they're gonna get your like perfect team. So we're trying to create something that gives a lot of replayability and experimentation.
Mm-hmm. And with the different like character designs and as you said with the passives, so over the course of I guess like a quote unquote run or a play of Grid Force, what's kind of like the average like party size that you can kind of get to, or people you can like swap in and out of?
So when you start a new stage or new land, you have to decide what the four characters are coming with you. Most of the time, it's gonna be Donna is the main character in another three. In the reruns, Donna is not required anymore. So because Donna is the main character in the story revolves around her. In the first row, you're gonna have to go with her. But then after that, you can just get four characters in the way you want. But between combats, between waves of enemies, when you're progressing, there's always a pause moment where you can recollect and you can save and you can rearrange characters and you can also change, evolve them. So you're gonna always have four characters, but if things get tough, you can always between combats stop, upgrade, or change characters and then continue.
Right. And if a character is defeated, like are they gone for good or do they like revive like after combat or after the stage?
Once they die in combat, they will have counter
Mm-hmm.
that is 9 seconds, and after 9 seconds they revive. So even if your party is decimated and you have just one character, if you hold enough, they're gonna come back to life and help you out. And sometimes people say, "Oh, these enemies are very difficult. They one-shot you um, in more difficult parts of the game." But you have to think about your party as one character. So if one of them die, you have still three of them, and if you resist enough, you're gonna have the four again back. So it's almost when you create your squad, you are creating your perfect character with different abilities and different things. But people probably say like, "Oh, I have one character that dies." Like if you hold it, the character's gonna come back. So it's a kind of it depends of your strategy and how long you can hold it, and then the character's gonna come back.
And I'm trying to think there's anything else from a gameplay. I guess one thing that we didn't touch on is the boss fights or boss designs. This is something that we definitely see from we see very different takes again with that Mega Man Battle Network kind of inspiration. Can you talk a little bit about like what was the philosophy of designing the boss fights in Grid Force?
So the bosses, the milestones, of course, of your progress, but they are directly connected to the mission of the character that is to collect those masks. So in the world of Great Force, the symbolism of the mask, that would how you present yourself to other people um, is what drive these characters to try to unlock the mystery of what is going on. So each one of these stages is gonna have you go through the stage, and in the end you're gonna find probably one of the goddesses, and the fight with them is gonna actually educate you about what is the ability you're gonna get. And it's almost like Mega Man, not Battle Network, but the normal Mega Man, where you fight enemy and you get a bit of the boss, and you get ability of the boss. So when you fight a goddess, you're gonna probably get one of her abilities in the end. And we wanted each one of the combats to be really hard. We want these combats to make be a run for your money. And the way we did this was to try to create specific mechanics for each one of the bosses, where you're not gonna find anywhere else. You're gonna find just in those bosses. So you're gonna get sometimes a boss the she's very annoying because what she does is that she um zombifies, like hypnotizes your units to fight on her side, and also blocks everything, makes all attacks that you have to reflect back on you. So how to do this? She has a way. So other characters, they just multiply themselves all the time. It's a kind of ground control situation where if you're very fast, you can neutralize the enemy, but if you let sleep, it's gonna just get out of hand. So you want each one of them to have this kind of mechanics that you have to think a bit about. We hope people are gonna love it, but we expect them to die at least a few first times, and until you understand what's the gist of the character. I think if you go through the game and you find a boss and you kill a boss first time, no matter how powerful you are, we failed. We want you to like, oh, how am I gonna get this character? Well, as long as it's fair and as long as it's fun, we want you to have some trouble with the bosses.
Mm-hmm. And besides like leveling characters up and gaining like passives and active abilities like that, are there any like gear or like specific things you can pick up like during like a run or a stage that can be used to modify characters further?
Um, so I am a big fan of um Easter eggs in games that make you actually go around and trying to find everything. So the game is chock full of this. So there are so many things that you can find secret stages, secret abilities, secret characters. Um, and we want people, and sometimes some people from the team is like, oh, this is going to be very hard for people to get, like, is this clear enough? And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be clear enough. I really want, like, in 30 years somebody find out something new about the game that nobody knew. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there's a secret stage that nobody knew that you have to do XYZ to do. So things in the game that we find very funny, that we put is you can actually learn to cook in the game. There's one part in the game that if you do a kind of spy mission, you actually get to learn a recipe that you can actually do in real life. And this is gonna unlock things for some characters. So we fill the game with all those things. We fill the game with lots of pop culture references that we love. I love Koniko because she breaks the fourth wall a lot, and it's fun to play with her. She always gets wrong, but it's fun because at least she knows she's in a video game. Um, so we try to create something that is fun for people to go and collect, but also in some way impact the gameplay, and that is kind of the philosophy of it.
And with the, I guess, like general like structure of Grid Force, like how long do you estimate a single run of game takes?
That is varying a lot that we noticed. Some people, the speedrunners in the community already finished the game in less than 5 hours. Um, and I find incredible. And the people who are really into the story and try to uncover the lore already spend more than 15 hours playing until the end. Uh, the story is supposed to be 12 hours long, but because you can go back to the stages and so the thing about the structure of the story is if you go to the story and you don't get a character because you did something wrong or the character was not available or whatever, once you finish the stage and you go to the reruns that is more like roguelike, you have the chance to find these characters again and sometimes help them or sometimes convince them. Otherwise, they just like, oh, sorry, it was a misunderstanding. I really want you to be part of my team or something like that. Um, and then these situations allow the story to be expanded a lot. So if the main story is 12 hours, to go through everything, you're gonna probably take 20, 25 hours, and then you have all the unlockables and all the secrets. There's gonna be a few, maybe a couple of dozen of hours, and then you have all the grinding and evolving your character. That can be like dozens of hours. So you get as much as you want from Grid Force. It's just is actually up to you. But I think the community is very engaged in breaking the game as fast as possible and getting to the end as fast as possible. And I'm very excited to see what they do.
And do you have like obviously with having the different paths, are there different endings? Is there's a quote unquote true ending to Grid Force, or are people like just going through it like trying to get 100%?
Um, there are at least four endings. I don't like to think of any one of those endings of less true. Um, it's just like life, right? You don't have a ending, a true ending of your life. Depends on so many things. Um, One thing that I really get annoyed about in games is the necessity of having a happy ending, and you feel the happy ending is the good ending, and the sad ending is the bad ending, and the whole message of this game is about the journey that you have with these people. Um, it's Donna, the main character, is absolutely lost in her life, and she is in this place that's very hostile to her. I find it very funny that I was showing the game to a publisher once, and he said, I don't like how she's treated. I don't like how people are dismissive towards her in the beginning. This doesn't feel like a video game. And I was like, yes, exactly. That's the point. I don't like people to feel connected to this character in a way. If you're a teenager who is very geeky and your family, mocks you for the things you love, or if you are LGBTQ person that feels, out of place, I don't like the characters to have this connection, to feel like Donna feels very uncomfortable in her life. Um, but during the story, she starts finding people who actually feel the same way, but join her anyway and go with her um in this journey. And I really want this to be about the journey. So the endings of the game are quite different, but I don't think the happiest of them is the true ending because the journey was very fulfilling for these characters. When you get to the end, they are ready to whatever. They're ready to continue. They're ready to die. It's all about the journey.
And trying to make the endings or like make a game that isn't like super happy and that kind of thing. It's very, I think, difficult, I think, for a lot of people because we've seen lots of games like the whole From Software model has just been like their stories don't end happily. Like there is no happily ever after in a Dark Souls game.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it tells lots of interesting lessons, especially when what I see many times is um, storytellers in general, not only in games, bending the story so they are happy in the end. Um, and they're not necessarily. I don't want to say that Great Force is a tragedy. It's not about that, but I think Great Force has different endings that tell how how well Donna embraced her journey. I think it's more about that and how she feel like she's fulfilled her role. Um, and I think some people are gonna feel very sad. Some people are gonna. I really like people to. I want people to cry, but I want people to have a genuine connection, the way I had when I was a teenager playing Final Fantasy VII, let's say. Um, and that is my goal: is to have a connection, not to make people happy or sad, but get people to connect.
Yep, and being able to get people to resonate with the characters, even if it is like not a happy story or if it gets dark, that can be very hard to do. And I'm hoping, or has the audience that has played Grey Force, have they resonated with the story?
Yes, and I find very funny is that lots of people play the demo. And I don't want to go very brainy on this, like very philosophical, but there's a reason why there are four main characters. It's because the other three characters that go with Donna, they are Bird, Pan, and Koniko. They represent different kinds of love.
Mm-hmm.
There's motherly love that helps you out, but sometimes suffocates you. You have, this sister love that sometimes picks on you, but it cares about you. And you have the romantic love that sometimes it's hard to find a point of compromising. And we wanted those things to be, recognized by the players. And I think in the beginning, when people play the demo, they have a very specific ideas of each one of the characters and where the characters are going to go. But by the end, I like there's a part in our Discord that is about the plot and spoilers. The thing that I get the most is, oh my god! Like I get a lot of this, and a screenshot of something that shocked somebody, what a character did or what character changed or what happened. And at those points, one of the reviews said is a tear jerk, and I was like, yeah, that's great. That's exactly what I want to. I want you to feel connected. So I think some people come to us and say they get the story is predictable, and then they play like half an hour, and it's like, yeah, I think all stories establishing a world are predictable because there's a lot of exposition. But once you get to know those characters, we want them to take you to different places.
Mm-hmm. So I guess in terms of gameplay wise, I do have some more general questions for you. As a bit of a time check, we are about like 43 minutes in, so I think maybe another 10 to 15 minutes of that works for you. Because I know we are working on a time zone difference. So what is it, like 6 hours or 4 or 5 hours ahead?
Yeah, it's 8 p.m. in
Okay.
London. Yeah, I'm
All right.
just like smelling the food of my dinner.
All right. I don't want to keep you from dinner for too much
No,
longer. So
no, it's fine. Just make it better later. It's fine.
there we go. So, for anyone still watching us live, if you do have questions for Dan, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wrap things up. I would say in like the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. I think that should be good. So, I guess my next question for you is at the time of this taping or this live stream, so Grid Force has been out for just, I think, under a month now. It came out on the 15th of September. So,
Yes.
how has the reception been for Grid Force, and have you done any, like, post release work to it yet?
The reception has been good. We got quite a lot of wish lists during our time promoting the game, and we managed to get some good numbers. The thing about um, game launching in an indie environment is that people feel like if you don't do 1 million copies, you failed. And for us, it's like if I can, sorry, if I can keep the lights on, is a big success. Like we indie is thinking not about the car they're gonna buy, is thinking about the next month of development of the next game. Um, so in terms of financial terms, we are good. But the most important for us is that we honestly thought the game would implode when it launches because you never know when masses of people start playing your game, what they're going to discover. So the first couple of weeks was very stressful with people like, oh, the game is freezing, or the game does this, or the game does that. They're like, oh my god, my life is over. I'm gonna get up, office job or something like that. And then you start working on that. We already launched 4 patches, stabilizing the game. And I think it was good for me to talk to other developers that already did this before. They kind of calm me down, like calm my nerves, because I was in a talk with other developers like a week before launch, and then I said, like very casually, I said, yeah, when Grid Force is launched and stable, we're gonna be thinking about DLCs or next game. And then the guy looked at me and said, "You are right. It's stable because launch is just the beginning." So it kind of put me in the right in my mood set. You stop feeling like you are a failure. If the game boots, you're like, great. But I think from my worst nightmares, it was like 20% of that. So I'm kind of happy with. And now we are actually working in some more quality of life. Um, you know, when you design things like UI and other things and you test it, it's like it's good, and then the community comes back to you, it's like, oh, to do this is a pain. Can you make it better? And then you start discovering your own mistakes and all shortcomings. And I think for now that the game is stable, we are focusing on getting quality of life improvements for the game, and thinking if we reach some milestones, then we're gonna. We actually have 3 DLCs planned. There are more stories that I want to tell that I could not fit in the game. Um, and it all depends of can we do this or not, but we really want to.
All right. Yeah, I definitely want to ask a little bit more about the DLCs. A question from Eric T in chat: how stressful is hosting a booth at conventions? Do you feel like it's worth the effort?
It definitely is worth the effort. Funny thing about booth in events is that people don't know is that most of the stress happens before and after. Doing is a pleasure. Um, so before putting your TV screen was not there, was the sellotape? You have to be there, but somebody's late, and the build is not booting. Like all those things happens before. Um, During is exactly what you wanted in life. It's paradise. You are showing the work of your life to people who are very interested. You're seeing people connecting. You're seeing people like there's no feeling like seeing somebody playing your game. I'm pretty sure there's some more, stronger emotions, but it's not the same emotion. It feels so good to see people having fun with what you did. Um, and also the great thing about the indie community is the indie community is so full of love. You don't get anything bad from other developers. They are there to help you out. So during is tiring, yes, but it's an absolute pleasure is when the closed door, the door's closed, and you have to pick it up everything and then get in an Uber and go back home. That the things get really, really stressful. But during is just pleasure.
Let's see. I guess one thing that I wanted to kind of swing back to as we are like kind of getting into like the wrap up for the cast. At the start, you talked about kind of like growing up in Brazil and the challenge of kind of like game dev back then. And one I just wanted to ask you about because it's something that I've seen, especially like the last 4 or 5 years, has been like a very I think big resurgence or like this interest in game dev in Brazil. I know that today there are like major conferences and major shows out of Brazil to highlight Brazilian developers and Brazilian studios. And I just want to give you a chance, like, to kind of talk to people, especially from my audience who may not know, like, how is the state of, I guess, like indie or just game dev in general in Brazil today?
It's actually very exciting. The I know some of the most talented studios and people that I know are from there. I know I'm saying this because I'm a Brazilian. Is because I see them being snatched to Europe and to America because they are just absolutely amazing. So some people you might not know, but the character designer of God of War is a Brazilian guy. Um, some incredible indies that you might play are actually created by Brazilian companies. Brazilians are always very ferocious in consuming media and creating media, and I think we never been very into game development because the tools were not there. But now the tools are there. It's just like explosion of creativity over there. I'm not saying there's different in any other place. I only think that this was something that was tacked and held for so long, and now we are able to actually put it out there. So there's quite a lot of amazing indie games. And other thing about Brazilian indie games is that we tend to be very fluent, especially the devs in English. So our games are all in English. We're gonna be able to enjoy the 100% of it. Um, and I'm actually very excited. I'm going to I've event there in the end of the year, and I just can't wait to see my colleagues there because they're brilliant.
Great. And yeah, it's interesting to see again like how Brazil has grown over the past decade. I think a lot of that has been just kind of growing part and parcel with the indie space has really exploded over the 2010s.
Yeah, the funny thing about the indie um scene is that the things that people don't sometimes don't think is like, oh, games that are not reactive to social and economic and whatever trends like movies and TV are. The only problem is that games take years to be to be done. We now see games coming. They are responding to trends that or things that happened 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And I think Brazil is being through some very turbulent times politically and socially. And I think the games that we're having, they're coming right now, reflect all the concern, but also the need of escapism and need to have some fun in a moment very stressful. Um, so I love to see what they're coming now as a response of what we've been through for the last years. I'm not gonna get political here, but there's some government that's not doing the best it can over there, especially during the pandemic. And I see the anxiety of my colleagues coming to life through amazing games to talk about, all those things. So yeah, very very excited about what they're doing, and also very excited about what the African indies are doing. They are doing great job. If you search for some African games, indie games, they are incredibly creative. They take lots of risks that normally indies don't take in Europe. So I'm quite excited to play them as well.
All right. So I think with that, to begin to wrap
Mhm.
things up for our chat, you mentioned a few minutes ago about having like 3 DLCs planned. For people watching us right now, is there anything like immediate that you're working on for Grid Force?
We are gonna have a big update that's coming out. It feels like not much, but it's quite a lot. We are rebalancing the game based on feedback. Some things are very hard, some things are easy. We want to make sure that the story flows well. The game's gonna get set of another 6 languages happening quite soon. So it's gonna have Spanish because now we have English in Asian languages, mostly because our partner publisher for launch is from Japan. But then I'm gonna have other European languages coming quite soon, and also South America. We are actually working really hard to get the Xbox launch happening as soon as possible. So it's gonna happen in a few weeks, and Switch coming just after that. Um, and we hope to be able to bring this also to PlayStation because we love the platform. We just have to make decisions, indies. You have to make decisions. But we really want to. Would love to be able to play Great Force in my PlayStation. But the other thing is that, funny enough, I got here. I don't want to make the. I'm not doing advertising to anyone, but Great Force is also to play on the Steam Deck. So if you have a deck, try. It's super cool. It's really nice.
All right, and you were saying earlier you may have ideas for your next game. Is there anything you can tease for people listening to?
Yes, I guess. I probably shouldn't. Jesus Christ. Um, we want to revolutionize tactical turn-based games. Um, so we have a few wild ideas, and we are working on this now. So I might be able to actually. No, no, no. Oh my God, I'm so turned. We we're gonna announce as soon as possible. If I do this, my producer is just gonna like just materialize out of thin air and just like strangle me.
They'll just like
But
tackle you off the camera.
exactly, it's like super just like yeah, like out of air thing. But it's not gonna take long. And we are very excited about this new game. We are still fully committed to stabilize Grid Force before we do anything. But the team is with nine people, so we managed to get some people already working the new game in concept art and then some um, you know demos, quick demos and tests and everything we see right now we really love. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm a big fan of um, open world games, and I should just shut up.
And I was just talking to someone. We were having a discussion about tactical strategy games and some like the challenge of seeing more like innovative and original ideas from the space. As I'm sure you're well aware, I'm sure as the chat is aware, we've seen this huge push into roguelike and roguelite design. And even like the old school like strategy games like the Advance Wars, Fire Emblems, and so on, we really haven't seen like too much, I think, like brand new takes on that respect.
There's a reason for that. We are, as developers, we are hostage of trends. Um, Even if we don't want to, it's very hard for us to ignore it. Because sometimes you're going to talk to a publisher, and making games is there's a lot of cost, especially if you are doing this like your main
Hmm.
source of income. I see friends doing amazing games that take 10 years to be done because they're doing after after dinner. Um, but for us to work like full time on this is a lot of money. So you're gonna go to a publisher and say, I have this amazing, innovative game that changes and shakes everything. And it's very hard for you to sell this because it's a big gamble. People might not like it. That's the reason
Hmm.
why the big innovators came from somebody actually working without the need of a big funding. But we hope that we can find a good balance where we can shake off the genre that I absolutely love is my favorite one, um, and bring something new that people are gonna really enjoy. I'm so excited about this game, man. Honestly, I can't sleep. I just thinking about it all the time. So I just hope people are gonna like it.
All right. So I guess before we kind of do like our end of stream wrap up, anything else regarding the design or development of Grid Force that we didn't touch on that you'd like to bring up?
Um, I think it's not the design of Grid Force, but it's about the message. The
Hmm.
reason why I created, not to brag, but I managed to create a good career in technology. So I didn't come to games to be rich. Trust me, because it's not the best place. Um, so I came to games to create stories that connect to people and to create stories that create an empathy between people. And that is the reason why Great Force and Dreamnaut's um, partnership with It Gets Better project
Hmm.
that is a charity, a global charity that helps LGBTQ, um, teenagers and young adults that are living in horrible conditions to say, things are gonna get better in the future. And it's exactly the same message of the game. So the all games for the Nauts need to be fun, need to be engaging, need to bring something new to the table, but also needs to make their life, the real world life, better. So we actually already um, raised more than $16,000 in donations for Day Gets Better. So it's closed now, but if you are playing the game and you feel connected, try to help people in real life. It's always good for you to pass this karma along.
All right. And trying to think, I just have like one more question. We talk about the release, talk about what we have coming. I think that should be it. I guess I was curious about. I haven't had a chance to play the check out Grid Force just yet. At the time of this recording, Next Fest is going on. That's kind of like eating up all my game time. Would you suggest if someone's interested in playing Grid Force now to like wait for like the next big patch, or I guess is it? Do you think like people will be able to like play through it now?
So you can totally play right now. The game is really stable and it's
Mm-hmm.
great to play. It feels really good. But the other thing about it is that every time we get people playing the game and joining our Discord, it helps us making the game better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's great for us to get feedback. We developers are these bats. We are just flying blind most of the time, and community is the walls of our cave. We shout at you and we ask you to bounce back and give us directions. So the more people are playing the game, first of all, the more funds we have to put in the game, but also the better we can make the game for you. Because what we do is for you. It's not, we want you to have fun.
All right. So, do you have any? I guess to like wrap things up. So, as you said earlier, the game right now is out on PC. You're hoping to get onto other platforms. Is it anywhere else other than PC right now?
No. So the game was launched in PC first because our first game we were really scared, but now we are ready for Xbox and Switch. So it's gonna come quite soon.
All right. And you mentioned your Discord. Are there any other social media you would like to plug before we say goodnight?
Yes, go to our Twitter. Is at the funny thing is that we are still using the old name. We used to be Playtra, so it's at Playtra Games, Playtra_games. Um, but you can just like look for Grid Force. You're gonna find anywhere. And just engage with us. Tells us if the game is great, if the game suck, if the game makes you have a connection. That we embrace all feedback as long as you are not too mean, because we have feelings too.
And I guess with that said, do you have anything you'd like to say to the fans watching, or any final thoughts to take us out with?
Can only say thank you. It was probably the hardest thing I ever did in my life, and I already been through shit. So it was really hard, but it's great when we see that you enjoy the game. When we get a 3 pages feedback, and sometimes the feedback is very harsh, but I feel like somebody actually cares and sits to write 3 pages of feedback. So thank you very much for your support and for your feedback and for your passion. Um, and thank you for giving us the chance to, fulfill our dream that is to create games for you.
All right. So I think with that, we'll wrap things up for tonight. Dan, again, thank you so much for coming on. And again, congratulations for the release of Grid Force.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And when you are ready to announce more about your next game and don't have to worry about anyone coming after you, please let me know and we'll be happy to have you back on.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to have some things to show quite soon.
All right. And for people watching, be sure to check out the links to everything Dan mentioned. I'll include them in the recorded version. And for those of you watching this live, I'll be getting to Grid Force as soon as Next Fest is over, so we'll be checking it out then. And you'll find links to everything, of course, all over the place, so be sure to do the liking, subscribing, and commenting. And as always, if you are a developer working on an upcoming or recent release game and you would like to come on to talk about it, or just talk about game dev in general, please reach out. I am always open for guests. And with that said, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where there are in science of games. So, Dan, I won't keep you from your dinner for too much longer. So, I hope you enjoy that. And definitely best of luck with getting the game out to the multiple platforms and whatever comes next.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Not a problem. So, everyone, have a great rest of your afternoon. And until next time, take care.